I can understand why the Palestinians hate us Israelis so much. It is not because we stole their land. Until they started a war against us in 1947, not 1 square inch of Arab land was stolen by the Jews. After the war, some Arab land passed into Jewish hands, but that is what...
I mean, it's like saying the Jews started a war with the Nazis in 1943 in Warsaw. It's like saying the Haitian slaves started a war with France in 1799. Yeah, I mean, we're 18 seconds into this video, and he's already said a bold lie that in 1947, or we should say 48, the Nakba, I don't even think he got the year right, but that's neither here nor there. The 1948 Nakba was a war that the Arabs started. No, little chode, this little wet chode wants to have you believe that the Arabs started a war after the Zionist terrorist organizations of the Irgun and the Haganah and the Stern Gang all committed massacres on the Palestinians in the lead up to the eventual revolt of the Arabs. Notice that I said revolt and I didn't say war. That's because the aggression had already occurred. And if you want to call this a war of aggression, then you will blame correctly the Zionist expansionists, the settler colony project of Zionism named Israel. I mean, it's sort of like saying Zionists included love to be patriotic when it comes to the American Revolution. The Americans were perfectly justified, according to Zionists, to repel the British Empire because the British wanted to, at least this is what is commonly accepted, although I don't agree this is the reason for the war, but this is the myth that they tell themselves, that they opposed no taxation without representation. They were opposed to a austere tax on tea, right? And the Americans revolted against the British but yet when the Palestinians revolt against the British for literally stealing their land, Palestinians are what? They're terrorists. How dare they? So right off the bat, this guy, but let's see what else he has to say.
What happens when you decide to start a war? You might lose. They don't hate us because of...
When you start a war, you might lose. You might lose when you start a war. No, when you take people's lands, they might fight back. That's what actually we should be saying.
The occupation, since they hated us before the establishment of Israel.
Wait, did he just unironically say the word occupation?
You decide to start a war. You might lose. They don't hate us because of the occupation.
He said they don't hate us because of the occupation. I mean, this is typical brain rot from the world's smartest Zionist. He acknowledges in one breath that they are indeed occupying Palestine, but in the next breath he says, well, that's not why the Palestinians hate us. Yes, it f***ing is, bozo. R.I.P., you are so cooked right now.
Since they hated us before the establishment of Israel.
They hated, yeah, and why did they hate you before? Why did they hate the Zionist settlers before the state of Israel? Oh, that's right, because they had already started occupying their land before the state of Israel was formalized by the UN's partition plan in 1947. Yes, there was an entire historical lead up to that point. There was an entire process happening which involved all facets of the British Empire, including its military and Zionist organizations like the Jewish Colonization Association. So even your own precious Zionist leaders fully admitted that what they were doing was colonizing the land of Palestine. And literally what he's saying is not even true according to the founder of Israel. I cannot overstate this enough. The founder of Israel doesn't even agree with this chode. The founder of Israel does not agree with this channel, travelingisrael.com. David Ben-Gurion is quoted as saying that why would the Palestinians agree to anything that we put forth? It is their land, and in their view, we have come to take it from them. Newsflash to this bozo. That's what an occupation is. And the quote that I just gave you is virtually verbatim. I mean, it's not word for word, but the sentence structure and the phrasing is pretty damn close. And there's not just that quote. There's a whole mountain of evidence that refutes everything this guy said in the first 28 seconds of his video, all right?
and continue to hate us after 2005, when Israel withdrew from Gaza.
Just playing all the hits, all the Hasbara hits right now. The next, of course, is, glossing over the fact that he fully recognizes that there is an Israeli occupation, but he says, but we left in 2005. Okay, every Zionist loves to claim that they left in 2005. They say that Israel withdrew its troops from Gaza. Of course, there was a political reason for that, which I won't go into, but it's actually what they actually did was they didn't withdraw their troops. Israel did not withdraw from the Gaza Strip in 2005. Israel redeployed its troops to the perimeter. And as we know, under international law, according to all of the relevant organizations far and wide, the status of occupation hinges, under international law, on, quote, exercising effective control, end quote. And thus it was concluded that because of Israel's blockade, its full unilateral control over the land and the sea and the airspace of the Gaza Strip, that Israel was still the occupying force, even though it didn't bear the traditional marker for occupation, which is to say, a military presence inside the occupied territory. Why am I saying this? Because he just claimed in 2005 Israel withdrew from the Gaza Strip. Well, still, according to every international body that is relevant to this geopolitical situation, that's not true. They are still the occupying force, okay? It's sort of like saying the U.S. is not an empire because it doesn't conquer territory like the British Empire did. Well, again, the United States exercises effective control over the entire world, and that's because there's been a lot of historical developments over the centuries since the British Empire was in its heyday. And so it's very much technological advancements played a part in this, etc., etc. The nature of empire has changed. Well, the nature of occupation has also changed.
They might claim that they hate us because we have prevented them from having a state, but
they might say, once again, just so flippantly glossing over one of the most important facts and so crucial to understanding this situation, he's just going to treat it as if it's just an afterthought. They might say that it's because we're preventing them from having a state, but in actuality, let's hear what his brain rot retort is.
That can be right, since they have had many opportunities to say yes to a Palestinian state.
Okay, so he flashes the famous Oslo Accords. There's Yitzhak Rabin with Yasser Arafat and Bill Clinton, which famously denied Palestinian statehood, did not recognize Palestine as a state still. The Palestinians did not have a right to self-determine as a result of the Oslo Accords. This is probably the more important part, is once again, what he just said is not even true according to Israeli officials who were intimately involved in the execution of the Oslo Accords. So even the foreign minister, Shlomo Ben Ami, publicly stated that if he were Palestinian, he would not have accepted the Oslo Accords. And so to say that they had all these chances, and once again to paint Palestinians as some belligerent, unyielding, I should say, stubborn people is completely is completely ahistorical. It's not at all accurate to say that. Remember that the Oslo Accords did not afford anything of the sort, anything close to a Palestinian state. And what it did was it installed Palestinian subcontractors who worked on behalf of the state of Israel, who were Israeli collaborators. And these Israeli collaborators, aka Palestinian subcontractors in the PLO, which were handpicked and vetted by the Israeli state, and even then given an interim period of confidence building, a confidence building of 5 years was baked into the Oslo Accord Agreement, which meant that we are going to monitor what's happening in the Gaza Strip. We're still going to have de facto control, we being Israel. And the people that we picked, we're going to make sure that you guys play ball. And in 5 years, we'll talk again. Well, most notably, the Oslo Accords created more unrest within the population. They began to look upon the PLO as increasingly corrupt and correctly as collaborators of the Israeli state and thus could not be trusted. And so what did people do? They revolted. They popularly protested and resisted the illegitimate dominating authority. And that led to the Second Intifada, which still began peacefully. And still, according to Shlomo Ben Ami himself, same one that I just quoted about Oslo, blamed none other than the IDF for escalating it into a full-out war. And those are his words, his descriptors. A full-out war, or maybe it was an all-out war, or maybe it was a total war, but it was, you get the point. And I'm only scratching the surface on the public admissions of Israeli officials that ultimately refute everything that this guy is trying to say and get us to believe. You don't know the name of the guy on the left, I guess Ben Shlomo or any random Hebrew name to hide his presence. The guy on the left is Yitzhak Rabin. He was later assassinated. And another thing that this guy is not telling you is why the fuck is Bill Clinton brokering a deal between Israel and Palestine? United States is the #1 patron of Israel. Do you really think they're an honest broker in this deal? Why is this not being kicked over to the UN? The UN is designed to handle these types of diplomatic settlements. Why is it US brokered? It's more so, you could say US back-channeled, because the international consensus is very clear what the world wants, but still we have the United States back-channeling and acting as if it's some benevolent, honest broker trying to make all parties happy.
Nixon ordered Cambodian genocide. Clinton sent cruise missiles to Sudan, people died. Obama gave the orders to do drone strikes.